It's World Book Day! Welcome to Two Bonded Books. My name is Janelle, and this is just one of a number of videos I'm going to be posting today to celebrate World Book Day. Since we have to stay at home this year, I thought I would celebrate World Book Day with you guys here on BookTube. And so for this particular video, I thought it might be fun to see if I could find a list of some of the greatest books of all time and see what books are on that list, how many of them I've read, how many of them I might want to read. And so in my research, I discovered this great website. I'd never seen it before, but it's called thegreatestbook.org. And I'm going to put the link down in the description below. And this guy has pulled together a list of the greatest books, the greatest fiction books, and the greatest non-fiction books. And he's taken from 128 different lists, and he's used this algorithm to create his list of the greatest books of all time. So check it out. It is really interesting. The greatest list, the greatest books of all time, the fiction list had 2,660 books, I think, and the non-fiction list had like a little over 1,200 books on it. And so it's just really interesting to look at that list and to see which books are the greatest books of all time according to this guy and his algorithm. But he also has the greatest books from 2010 onward, and then from 2000, from the 90s, from the 80s. And so it's just a really interesting site. So what I did was I went on the fiction list of the greatest books of all time, and I just chose the top 100. So if you look, it's the first 2 pages of his list, the top 100 books of all time. And I thought I would look through that list and see how many of them I have read and how many of them I would like to read. And that's what I did. And I discovered that I have read 24 of the 100 greatest books of all time. And I think that's pretty good, actually. I've read The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, Hamlet by William Shakespeare, Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. I didn't like that one, but I've read it. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, 1984 by George Orwell, Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, Oedipus the King by Sophocles, Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, Lord of the Flies by William Golding, The Complete Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe by Edgar Allan Poe, Emma by Jane Austen, Animal Farm by George Orwell, Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, Charlotte's Web, interestingly enough, by E.B. White. I thought that was interesting to find that on this list. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. And then I also looked to see which of them I might want to read, and there were 27 on there that were books that I have not read yet, but I would be interested in reading them. And I'm not going to read this whole list, but a few of them were Don Quixote by Cervantes, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, Middlemarch by George Eliot, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, A Passage to India by E.M. Forster, and Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Now there's more, but I think that between the books that I've read and the books that I want to read, that's 51 books off of a list of 100. That's not bad. So why don't you go over to the greatest books thegreatestbook.org and look through the list of 100 books. And I would love to hear, how many of those have you read? How many of those do you want to read? And looking at this list, a lot of the books on this list were the great classics in our world. You know, Homer's the Iliad or the Odyssey, those kind of books, as well as just like a whole bunch of Ernest Hemingway, for example. And I realized as I was reading this list that I didn't feel any kind of pressure to read all 100 of those books just because they are on a list that is the greatest books of all time. I believe this guy and his algorithm that these are considered the greatest books of all time, but I also know what I like. And I read primarily for enjoyment. And so if a book doesn't interest me, then I'm not going to read it because there's just not enough time to read all the books in the world. And so let me just encourage you to look at this list and to have fun to see how many books you've read and how many books you might like to read. But don't feel pressured to read every book on this list just because it's a list of the 100 greatest books of all time. Read the books you want to read. There is not enough time in this world to force yourself to read a book that you don't want to read. So read for enjoyment. Read the books that you want to read. And if you are still figuring out what it is that you really enjoy in a book, then yeah, pick and choose, pick books that you've never heard of and read enough until you know what it is that you really enjoy in a book, and then stick to those kind of books because there's just not enough time in this world to read books we don't enjoy. So on this World Book Day, check out the list of the 100 greatest books of all time, enjoy it, and then go and read a book that you know you're gonna love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for another video soon. Bye.